Little red light's on, so I'm gonna get started. Hi everybody. Day 2, 4:45. How you feeling? Yeah, I'm exhausted. I don't know about the rest of you. Just a quick show of hands. I usually do a Menti meter, but I left it off this time. Who are my English teachers in the room? Who are my not English teachers in the room? Score. My name is Melissa Ampiro. I have 23 years experience in ELA, grades 7 through college. I left the classroom December 9th to move to the IU to work as a staff developer to teach with teachers. It's time for me to call my kids. Please follow me on Twitter, Mel Ampiro. This is actually my website. My entire presentation is actually on my website. So that's where we're gonna play. Just a little bit of background about who I am and what I do. A lot of what I've taught for the past 19 years has been for struggling learners. I walked into my job as an 11th and 12th grade teacher, and they were like, hey, so we want to make the struggling learners classes as small as possible. You got them. And for the last 19 years, every time we sat down to write out a schedule, I was like, gimme. And those are the kids that I've had. I love them. But they don't like to write papers. It's not what they do. And so I've spent a lot of time sort of curating a lot of stuff to find different ways to get kids to do research. And especially as technology kind of expanded and exploded, there's so many new ways to put stuff out there that I wanted to give my kids a chance to showcase that. I'm gonna get rid of this. This is not a slide, it's just a picture. So actually, if you go to my website, melissaampiro.com, and there's a drop down in the this is my homepage. All the pictures, by the way, that you see on here were taken by me, because I have a thing about copyright. Here we go. You can actually click on Not Your Average Research Paper. And what I did was I put all this stuff up here. And what I want to do is just talk to you a little bit about what I did and why I did it. And there are examples and stuff that you can see and play with. And then I want to sort of open a discussion about what you're thinking you might want to do in your room with your students. Just an addendum, I am going to warn you, I used APA citation with my students. I love MLA, I'm an English teacher, it's my thing. Nobody else uses MLA but English teachers. So it's true, when they go to college, if they're going to go into education, sciences, maths, you're looking at having to use APA. The only like catch is those crazy people that go into political science that have to use Chicago. I also know how to do that, so I actually taught some kids Chicago as well. But I shifted to APA with my 11th and 12th graders because if they were gonna move on at the collegiate level, disclaimer, I also taught like the AP kids, and then the kids that didn't want to be in school. So I tried to like kind of cover all of it. And I had this crazy idea, and it was NPR's reason that I had this crazy idea. So 3 years ago, NPR started to do a podcast competition for students. And I thought, that's a great idea. Let me have kids do a podcast. So one of the ways that I kind of shifted my research paper was that for my students, I was teaching a college and high school English course. It was English 102, 101 first semester, 102 second semester. So 101 was all the basic writing, and like I had them do some really cool stuff and learn how to do some new things. But for 102, it was all persuasive. So I was like, well, let's do a podcast, like a 5 series persuasive podcast. That was the whole semester. And so I had the students, I only had 3 kids in that class. It was fantastic. So what I had them do was actually create a whole podcast. The assignment is actually here. And all the pieces are here. Let me see, here's the assignment. No, I know what the resources. Everything's PDF, you can download it. Please feel free to take it. Spread the love. And we talked about that it needed a name, it needed a visual. You were going to put your voice out there, you're going to put yourself out there. I had them sort of check out Cult of Pedagogy, Serial, Lore, some of the podcasts that I listen to. They found some that they listened to, and they chose topics. So the 3 topics that those students chose that year was, one of them chose one, and she called it Moms Who Murder. It was a little dark, and we had to like pull her out of some places. She actually did research on the reasons why women like murder their children. And I know it sounds really dark, but she wants to be a forensic psychologist. So it was her wheelhouse. But one of the sources that they had to have to do this was actually a first person like interview source, like a primary source. So she had to go out and talk to a forensic psychologist. And it was super cool, and it's now where she actually is in college as a sophomore. I had another student do one, and her whole thing was like weird conspiracy theories, and she just called it the conspiracy theory, and that was kind of like her thing. The one that I'm going to show you is the one that one of my students made. He called it Rules Rule. And the reason that I want to show this to you is for a couple of reasons. One, he made the logo himself. It's up here in the corner. And he actually gave me permission to like show this out. He's a sophomore at Lebanon Valley College right now as an actuarial science major. But his whole thing was about rules in sports and how ridiculous some of the rules in sports are. And he did 5 sports and the Olympics. So he did baseball, basketball, ice hockey, football, and the Olympics. He actually played ice hockey for a very long time until he got seriously injured. He was actually on his way to like some serious ice hockey like playing, and he got hurt so bad that he couldn't anymore. So he's got this crazy love of sports, and he was like, well, can I do this? And I was like, absolutely. So what we did was, when we created the podcast, I put them in a couple different places, but they didn't actually broadcast them because I hadn't figured out how to do that well yet. But we made websites, and so on the websites, and these pictures are all free off of Pixabay, the written version of the paper is actually right here. So they had to write it. And we were in Google Docs, and the kids, you know, they had to peer edit, and I do feedback-based assessments, so it was a lot of like, why this, why that, why does this look like this? So the written portion, that whole like, well, did you do citations and all that, it's all here, including citations for the music that they got. Because there's actually like music included. But what's super cool, and hopefully the sound will work, is that you can listen to them. These work.
Baseball. The great American pastime. 2 teams, 9 players each, millions of fans, 7th inning stretches, and hot dogs for all.
Bless you.
It's a tradition that has evolved for over 100 years. Yet, for a league that's been around since the late 1800s, you would think that the game has evolved enough where nothing can break the sport, right? Oh yeah, umpires. Ever since the development of instant replay and electronic pitch tracking, the margin of error for an umpire has become slim. Slim Shady slim. But umpires are not immune to mistakes. They are human after all. And with the use of technology becoming increasingly more popular in baseball, human error is becoming less and less acceptable. So unacceptable, in fact, that the last decade has been host to an ongoing debate among fans and executives of Major League Baseball, or the MLB, over the abolishment of umpires and the implementation of a robotic rule system. On one hand, robotic rules would be perfect. No missed pitches, no missed outs, and no judgment calls. But on the other hand lies 100 plus years of baseball tradition that has made the sport what it is today. I'm your host, Logan Bolt, and welcome to Rules Rule, where today I'm going to tell you why baseball should never give up their umpires.
I mean, it goes on. I think they gave them like a 5 to 10 minute window, which is what the NPR Podcast Challenge actually did. And we submitted their first things into there. A couple of really cool things about this. One, I read the versions of it, and if you flip to the bottom of it, there's citations. This is actually the commentation. There's he did a play that had happened, and that's actually in there. And there's all of his references are there at the bottom. They are referenced within the page. I had him use signal phrases, so when you're speaking, you're going to say, well, according to, because nobody's reading it, they're listening to it. The best part about this assignment is that I graded them on my way home from school in the car. I listened to them. It was, in all honesty, like, it's a 5-page paper. He read it to me. So we got to play with some of the cool technology. We're a one-to-one school, so they had iPads that they could work through. I let them go to the computer lab if we needed to find a quiet place, whatever. Like, we did what we needed to do to get it done, but I thought it was a really awesome way to sort of change the view of this. And to do this, there are ways to put it out much more socially than I did. And the reason that I didn't is because I didn't at the time know how to do it any better. But now we've just got stuff where we can sort of toss it out there. I didn't want it to be a YouTube channel, but I wanted them to be able to kind of culminate that. So please, check out some of this really cool stuff that Logan did, because he rocked. That was one of the ways that I had my students do something a little different. 2 years before that, I had a group in that same class, and there were 15 of them, and I always had them make this like big giant research paper, and it was like 40 pages long, and 5 of them did it together, and then I had to grade them. That's our thing, right? Like, you still have to evaluate it, and sometimes they're just not so exciting. And we know from research that students do really well when they care about their topics. So again, I hit him up and I was like, I want you guys to write about what you want people to know. But we decided to play a little off play on TED Talks. And you can't call them TED Talks, all kinds of copyright involved. TEDx is copyright, so as a group of students, they decided, I worked at Bermudian Springs High School, which is near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and they decided to call it BERM, the Educated, Respond, Motivate. And they gave up a Saturday to go to school and give their presentations, and they were TED Talk style. I allowed them to write them out. They could read them if they wanted to. I wasn't going to freak them out, stand in front of a podium without anything to read. But all they could have on their slides was like a screenshot. Like, the presentation isn't read me this PowerPoint, it's I'm talking about this image. I'm talking about this image. And some of them chose to work together and some of them didn't. As a group, we chose what all the topics were, and then we made it live. You should all be able to have access to this. What I did have to do when I did this, was I did have to note that all the opinions expressed in these pieces are the sole ideas of the speakers and in no way represent Bermudian Springs School District. I had to do that. We invited parents to come. We invited people to come in on a Saturday morning. A bunch of people showed up and they gave these presentations. There are a ton of different topics. And group ones, I'm going to warn you that if you do flick through them, a silent epidemic happens to be about being sexually harassed. The student who did do this presentation, I did, as a mandated reporter, report her, and she refused to give any information to the people who came and spoke with her. But I did do my due diligence, and she knew. I was like, you know what I have to do, and she's like, yup, and I'm going to tell you that nothing's going to come of it because I won't talk. Okay, but I did do my due diligence. So if you do watch that one, it is moving and powerful and amazing, and I love that kid to death. But I did do my due diligence, and she just refused to speak beyond what she wanted to talk about. Because what she wanted to talk about was the fact that it happens and that we need to be more conscious of it, not the fact that it happened to her. I had some really great, this one, powder needle pill, these two students, what we did was, they're all here, the paper is there, all of their slides are actually available Like, you can see their whole presentation in paper form. Again, there's their sources. They linked stuff. They made the websites themselves. I did not do this website. They did it themselves. Their sources are at the bottom. What I did do, and I'm going to flip to the top here, is that we did film them. And they're all on YouTube, and you can actually watch them. It's not the greatest filming. It was me and an iPad without like a Padcaster stand. Like, it was a bunch of stacked books, and it's the best I could do. But these two students were really interesting. She's actually graduating from Penn State Nursing School, and the young man that she spoke with works for his parents' bus company. But she spoke about the opioid crisis in our county, in Adams County, Pennsylvania, from a medical perspective, and he spoke from the friend of someone who had OD'd. And that's how they played off each other. These two students were not friends outside of that classroom. Small school, everybody knows each other, but like, you know who hangs out. But they bonded over this. And the day I evaluated them, I didn't read these papers. That happened. And it was so powerful. There's a bunch of really great ones in here. This one through Immigrant Eyes. This girl, Elizabeth Garcia, actually got a full ride to Swarthmore. She's an English communications major right now, but her whole presentation is that she is the first child, God bless you, of undocumented immigrants. She's got an older sister, and then she was the first one born here. And it's her story. And she backed up her stuff. Like, there's obviously emotion in it, but they spoke out. This poem, she actually wrote for Scholastic, but everything's here. And what I loved about it was that we got pictures, they found this stuff. She curated stuff from home. She got pictures from family members, but they curated this. This was their stuff, and they know that it's here, and they know that it's still hot. That's her sister's quinceañera. And they knew where it was going to be and how it was going to kind of play out. But for me, it was powerful because they were digging into research that they wanted and asking me, like, how do I give credit to my aunt who took this picture, or you know, when I pulled this thing down off the opioid crisis center off the government website, like, how do I cite it, and how do I talk about it, how do I simplify it, because some of them are real complicated. And she was like, I only want this column. It's like, well, let's remake the information and then say that you got the information from this site, because I can do that. Yeah, we can simplify it if we need to. And it was so powerful for them to stand up in front of their family and friends and our district and talk about it. It was super cool. And again, just another way to do it. We're still teaching all the same kind of research topics, but outside the realm of it being some like paper. Moving away from, those were sort of my upper level kids. When I got to the students who I know really don't want to do this kind of stuff, I pushed again at, what do you want to talk about? And there was a CNN website called What Would Make You Care? This is actually, come on. That's the actual site. Here it is. So CNN did a What Would Make You Care feature story, and it was what would make you care about Aleppo. Where's Aleppo? What is Aleppo? Who cares about Aleppo? And so they did this as an article, and I thought to myself, holy cow, what if I can get kids to do something like that about what they cared about? Okay? I don't care about dirt track racing. I know, I'm sorry. It's just not a thing for me. But I had kids who were dirt track racers. Tell me why I should care about that, please. Because I like you, and I want to like the things that you like, but I really find it dull. So explain. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to them. Explain it to me. And so what I had them do, and these again were some struggling kids. I had them make websites. This is just a Google site. We're a Google school, so the kids had their sites. They had to open them. I had to make sure that I had to actually take ownership of this one and then open it so that it could be public. But we posted them all out. I would tweet them every once in a while. And they had to have pictures, and they had to have information. And there's the statistics, there's the citation. And I got some really great information from kids. They didn't know about stuff. Like, I had a kid who's like, well, I work at the SPC. I'm like, but do you know what puppy mills are? Do you know that Lancaster has one of the biggest puppy mill problems in the country? And they're like, really? Yeah, go look it up. And we did it in class, and it worked sort of, I tried to make it as organic as possible. Like, what else do you need? Like, what else would I need? And they're not huge. This is not a gigantic website. But for a student, it had to end with a here's how you can help. But for a student who wouldn't normally hand in a research paper, I even got a worksite page with hot links. And she talked about it with her friends. And I got an email from this particular girl's mom that was like, this girl hasn't handed in an English homework assignment in years. What did you do? I don't know. I asked you to talk about stuff you wanted. I wanted it to be organic and natural for them. They were amazed when they were like, you don't care what we write about? I was like, there's like a this much care because it has to be school appropriate. Like, you know, because 16-year-old boys. No offense, gentlemen in the room. Okay, just is. Yeah, there was like a window. I was like, come on, it has to be school appropriate. Like, your mother and grandmother need to be able to read this. Okay. I'm originally from New Jersey. I grew up in the suburbs. I moved out to Annville, Pennsylvania, near Hershey to go to college, and I never left. But it took me 20 years to assimilate to that my 16-year-old students might have a gun in their trunk because they go hunting after school. Like, that was a thing for me. And my husband's a hunter, and I had to get used to it. But I had to let them talk to me. One kid did a whole thing about Sunday hunting. One kid did a whole day about Sunday hunting has to happen. Another kid was like, leave Sunday alone. That's my God time. I kill the deer on Saturdays. Right? But they were talking to each other about their English projects in the cafeteria. 1 point for me. Right? And what it really is about is keeping kids curious. We have the techniques to put them out there to keep them curious. So let's do it. Another one that and all of these, like, the assignments are there. You can click on all of it, it's all hot. And if it isn't, please let me know and I'll fix it. One of my other ones was infographics. Now, this one doesn't have examples. This is actually an infographic I made about infographics. I was doing a small workshop and I did a handout. So this is actually a list of all kinds of infographics that you can use. But what I got from kids, now this is a student that instead of writing me a research paper, did a for and against for the death penalty. This is really small. You can zoom in on it if you want when you click it on. But all his works cited is down here. The layout came out from, I think this one might have come from Pictochart, right? But he had to go look it up. What? Might be, is it Canva? I don't remember. I use them all. Might be Canva. But again, a student who doesn't normally sort of do stuff like this, he thought it was easy. The amount of work he did to put this together was amazing. Another one. Here, we're gonna go back into like the lit stuff for my English people. This is like the short version of Hamlet, Act 2. It's an infographic on Hamlet. And there's like some, I know, it's fantastic. External conflicts, internal characters. I was like, oh, you're good. Right? I assigned this. I was like, hey guys, like, can you make me like a poster? But no glue. Let's do it this way. But it had to have stuff. And they had to talk about it. And these were done in groups. And so kids had the ability to play off on one another. And I walked through the cafeteria and they're arguing about what the external conflict in Hamlet is. And they stop at me as I walk through. They're like, what's the external conflict in Hamlet? Which one? there's more than one? All of a sudden they start talking again. Yes. Right? Because it's just a different way to sort of lay it out. You guys know Note and Notice? Right? You know Note and Notice? Kylie Beer's Note and Notice. It's a book on close reading. So I had some students actually create infographics about Note and Notice. This one is the fiction one, and so they made a bookmark of the 6 R's. I had a different group. I split the group in half, and the other half of the room did the nonfiction one, and they had their own infographic. This one, I did have my students do a research paper on jobs. So when I use that group of sort of non-committed educational students, I'm like, hey guys, let's research some jobs, because in 6 months your mama's going to need you to get one, right? And they laugh, oh, I'm going to do the. I had one kid who actually told me that his mother was okay with him sitting in the basement and playing video games, and so I emailed her. And then I showed him the email that said Mama was not okay with that and he was going to need to get a job. And he was like, no, she said it was okay. I was like, oh no, I have it in writing. Let's talk about like what you're good at. But I had them research some jobs. And then we actually printed these out. These are long, so we printed them out, taped them all together, and actually then did a gallery walk. But you can put the citations on them. They can all be there. They're just sort of different ways to look at stuff. This one I am going to show you. So I said that I did that Note and Notice. I had the students not only do infographics, but I had them actually take the book and do a short video. So one group did close reading fiction, and one group did close reading nonfiction. I showed you the infographic for fiction. Let me show you this quick video. It's 5 minutes on the short version of close reading for nonfiction. This video actually went from Bermudian Springs High School to a middle school science class in the Philadelphia area. I had a friend who was like, hey, can you like teach my kids how to read a textbook? I was like, absolutely. So we sort of partnered up to do it, and this is what they came up with.
Illustrations. Look for charts, diagrams.
You have to, it's funny.
Time.
That's actually a quiz. The first.
Have you ever read a textbook and have no idea what it means? Try close reading. Close reading will help you better understand concepts in nonfiction books. It focuses on finding the precise meaning of a text through a variety of signposts that you can look for. Signposts are guides that will help you to find specific details in a text. So, when you're reading nonfiction passages, don't wince, quince. Quince stands for quoted words, unfamiliar vocab, illustrations, numbers, and statistics, contrasts and contradictions, and extreme or absolute language. When you're reading, you should be on the lookout for these signposts and always ask questions. There are all types of examples in your science textbook of these signposts. On page 379, look at how the author relates chemical structures to spider silk. This connection helps to give the reader a mental picture for the concept of chemical structures that's more familiar. You're more likely to remember what chemical structures are now, right? Quoted words happen when a text...
That was actually a screenshot of a digital textbook that those particular kids were using. She had sent me a couple specifically to do this with, right? And the kids used a bunch of different apps. We sort of app smashed it. We used to explain everything, to look at the screen and like highlight stuff and talk through it. And we used iMovie, I think, to put it all together. By the way, they bought like 6 quinces because they didn't think it was a real fruit. And after we dropped that quince and it kept breaking open, and then when they were all done, I actually have a picture of them all eating like chunks of this quince. And if you've never had one, they're delicious. But again, it was another way to do something different. There's works cited at the end. You know, the kids gave me. I wonder if there are pictures. Oh, there he is running through the library. There they are. Eileen Beers when we did this, and like she and Probst gave me the thumbs up totally. She's like, that is so much fun. Again, something different. It's a video. It took it was half the class. Half the class did a video, and half the class did a video. And it took, I gave them like 2 weeks in class to work on, to build there's a scripts, and we're gonna work on scripts, and we cross-connected script, like, they worked together. My job was the facilitator. What are you doing? What do you need? All right, I'll buy you a quince. Like, you really need a quince? I'll buy you a quince. How do you spell quince? That was a good one. But they did it themselves, but they got to curiosity, like, with each other. And I thought that kind of build was awesome. And a lot of how I assessed, like, in all honesty, you want to know what any of these kids got at any of these projects? They all got A's. That website's not the most fantastic thing. There's some spelling errors in it. It's got some issues. But I know how hard that kid worked to make that happen, because I was seeing pieces of it. I was doing formative assessment left and right. Little did they know that I was keeping sort of a running tab on what was going on. You know, the only kids who don't score well for me on these sort of outside the box projects are the ones who just don't do them. And that's a whole different conversation. The other thing I did want to show you is that, you know, book reports are boring. And this is where this all started for me, was that I'm an English teacher, and I was like, you gotta do some kind of book report. So I sort of like blew out my box for book reports, and I gave my students the option of any book they wanted. It had to be a book. And it had to be above like 8th grade reading level. I thought that was a good window. But other than that, I didn't care what it was about. And I gave them options. So I had students do all kinds of things. This particular student who's not a reader, this is the same girl that did the opioids crisis thing, hated reading. I handed her Laurie Halse Anderson's Winter Girls, and then she read Everything on My Shelf by Laurie Halse Anderson after that. We made this video, we posted it on YouTube, and we tagged Laurie Halse Anderson in it, and she now follows Laurie Halse Anderson, and they talk to each other every once in a while. And Laurie Halse Anderson happens to be an author that will do that. She's fantastic. But like that, I took a kid who hated reading, found that right author and that right project, and bam, right? And she started to do like little tiny book reviews of Laurie Halse Anderson stuff. There's another video, named Moriarty's What Alice Forgot. And the students made them themselves. These are the students on their, a lot of them on their own. I had my artists. How many of you have artists in the room who you know, like, they just need to do something a little different? I let my artists make art. So this was, I said, when you make it this way, I need to know exactly what the book is about and its whole kind of nuance just from looking at the image. This was A Clockwork Orange. And the year that we did this, it was the year The Hate U Give came out. And so, the student who did this, she came in and she was like, oh, Ms. Pero, oh my God, like, you don't understand. Can you look, do you know what it means? And I was like, cops, red and blue. She's stuck in the middle. If you've never read the book, it's really a thing. But there's a splotch here, and it's reddish, brownish. And I was like, I'm looking at it, and she goes, what? And I read the book, and I know the book, and it's really meaningful to me. And I kind of started to tear up, and I was like, why did you mix the red and the blue? Like here, was that on purpose? And she looked at me, and she was like, it's the blood. There's a spoiler, happens in like the first 2 chapters. A kid gets shot. Yeah, you get it. You get it. From just that piece of art. Now, are kids gonna brick some of these? Oh, I could do a poster? Sure. Did this kid get a lot of credit because this is some fantastic piece of artwork? No, it means what it means. This particular girl also happens to be a fantastic artist who's won all kinds of like Scholastic Awards. This is not her best artistic work as a drawer, but this was her like heart on a page about this book that she read. And I've got kids who can do, you got kids who can do that. If any of you have ever used Adobe Spark, one of my favorites, Adobe Spark Page is web pages. I had a student do Les Miserables, and so she built me a website. And her whole thing is on this website. And then I embedded it in the Google website because she was a history buff that just wanted to read that. Another video. The rest of these are videos. This was actually a book jacket. So this would have been the inside of the book jacket. And this is Dorothy's, yeah. There's another website. Now this one's really interesting. The girl you heard speaking is this girl. And this book, Whisper, is actually about a deaf, she just graduated? No, she's a senior in college at Duquesne in the deaf education program. She's not deaf, she knows no one who's deaf, it's just a passion of hers. And this book was actually written, and one of the characters in it is deaf. And she made this trailer. Well, Chrissy Keegery is actually a British author, and does not have a really big social media. Like, we couldn't find her anywhere. I sent her an email through her website and sent her this, and she sent back a signed copy of the book to the student. So they were like these connections were there. This video also happens to really, really good. That's actually a kind of a mock-up of the book cover. Is a girl sitting in that kind of bubble, and so she put that together. But my idea was, in all of these things, that I wanted to give kids an outlet that was different than the paper, partially because they needed something that wasn't on paper. Because how many, we're educators, and so we work with paper, but think about the jobs they're gonna go to, right? Think about the things that they're gonna do after school. They're gonna go to jobs where, even doctors don't use paper anymore, it's all online. It's all on computers, right? My son started to work for Penn State. I have a 23-year-old stepson, and he started to work for Penn State as a maintenance guy. They handed him an iPad, and that's where he gets his job stuff, and that's the map, and there's little X's on the map of where he's got to go do what he's got to do. It's not paper. So I wanted to sort of get out of that window. So what I did do here was I actually went on an app search and tried to find all kinds of things that you could go to create any of this. Bunch of podcasting, Vogaroo, Twisted Rave, Spreaker, VoiceThread. Anchor actually put stuff on. I believe actually put stuff online. Video creation, Explain Everything, super cool app that I think there's a cost to it. It might be like $20 to buy it. But you put it on an iPad and you can move stuff around on a screen and talk and clear stuff and swipe to the next screen, and so you can write on books and things. Powtoons is fun. Slideshows, obviously Google, Nearpod, Pear Deck, Prezi, SlideBeam was one I found that was sort of cool. Website creation, Adobe Spark Page, one of my favorites because it's so easy and free, 100% free. Ucraft, Strikingly, Weebly, Wix, WordPress. I had that really good art student, when they made, I asked them to make digital portfolios as well and put all of their work online, but I asked them as seniors to do it under their own personal email address so that the school didn't snag it when they graduated. And one of them actually went to Squarespace and bought a website, and she still uses it. She actually sells her art on it right now. Some timeline makers, because I did timelines. Google Slides can do them, but there's actually some online timeline makers. So kind of wanted to be able to do all of this stuff that we've done on paper, and I've not thrown research papers out. There's all of that sort of background of, yes, you need citations, yes, you need works cited pages, yes, we need to say where your sources are, yes, we're going to use a signal phrase and say, hey, according to so-and-so, this is the truth, because we all know that the sources make it sound better, right? That's the proof. But it was a different avenue for them to sort of show off their learning. And I really enjoyed what my kids kind of exploded with all of this. And I wanted to sort of set it out there and show you what's possible. They'll do it. And if, dear Lord, if they come, you've seen their comments. What have you done? Yeah, and talk to me.
I just have a question.
Yeah, please.
Adobe Spark, we've been trying to get our students to use it. Have you figured out a way for them to be able to resize images in that?
In Adobe Spark?
Yeah, have you noticed that the resizing images is weird?
Adobe Spark's a bit glitchy for resizing images, but you can do it. You want to use it on a computer, not an iPad.
Or an iPad.
Right. The iPad, the apps are good.
Okay.
It's way better on the computer. But really cool thing about Adobe Spark is that if they log in on the iPad and do it, and they close it down and they open it in their own account on a desktop, all the stuff's there. Yeah, that's not app specific to a device. So yeah, you can do way more on the computer with Adobe Spark than you can, yeah. But again, it's like a small planes flying away. You could do more on the computer, and that's usually where that glitch comes from. But you can, it's all there. Like if they put it on the iPad, then they go later for the computer, it's all still right there. Super cool. Does anybody else do anything like sort of outside the box? I want like my not English teacher people, like what are you thinking? Talk to me.
I've been thinking about doing a Genius Hour once a week, and I think because I teach African American history, and one of the things that I get from my students a lot of the time is like, we don't like what they teach in this class because all they teach us about is this. So if I did this, because I just did a project on Black Lives Matter recently, and I was like, make something. I literally don't care what it is. Like, make something that responds to, here's a prompt, make something.
One of the big picks one of the big things for me for all of these assignments is that I made them all live. Like there were authentic audiences for them. I did make the website that Logan did is actually hot. Like there are people seeing it. We put them out there because really weird thing when the kids realize that you're not the only one who's gonna see it, and like not their because they don't care if their friends see it either. But if like other people they don't know in cyberspace are gonna see it, it kind of shifts their motivation a bit.
Is there a reason you didn't put any of the videos on like the YouTube channel?
They were originally on my school YouTube channel. The way our school district worked, we all had our own accounts. So I made them live and I made them hot, and then I actually had to download them when I left my school district because I didn't want them to live in a place I couldn't grab them anymore, so I downloaded a whole bunch of them. Some of them are still there, some of them aren't. It depends on what they shut down when they shut down my account. That's just because I left the district and I went from the school district I was into the IU. So yeah, but they were all hot. They were all out there, and we tweeted them. I actually had a classroom hashtag. My classroom number was 226. So Berm226. If you do hashtag Berm226, you can see all kinds of stuff that was happening in my classroom. Because I just put stuff out there and tagged it. So we made it out there. We put it out there hot all the time. Remember those days? Those of you who were like, "Don't get on social media. It's bad for teachers." My classroom was all over. But yeah. But authentic audiences are so awesome. And we got like, sorry you didn't win, but thanks for putting your stuff in for the NPR challenge. But like, we put it out there. You know, somebody else judged it. Logan was mad. I was good. Yes, Logan, but you don't always get first place. What else? Those of you who are like not, like ELA, we've been doing this for years, right?
I'm a principal librarian, and actually we did a lot of media literacy, so seniors read the Handmaid's Tale last year, so we merged it with the media literacy with modern propaganda and studying propaganda in Handmaid's Tale, and had them make them on Adobe Spark, which is why it was just they had to take all what we learned about using color and using symbols for propaganda. They made like if Gallia had making memes or making memes. Like,
Oh yeah,
Ukraine.
love meme. I love meme projects.
And they were chilling. Like their memes so creative. They had to use some color theory so they knew really what colors were usually conventionally and then symbolically. You know, and then they had to pick a phrase out of the book that they, you know, as the primary source
Right.
or what they were building off of. It was just like chillingly awesome what they came up with. Like,
They're
nooses as a symbol, just like hanging with no body.
yeah, with no body, just the news. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
So.
intense.
They will surprise you with some of the stuff they didn't think of. Anybody else have any other ideas bubbling around you might want to like toss out to the room? Please do. I will add them to my collection. These are just again some of the things that I did that I saw kids really expand about. My favorite, I'm not gonna lie, was the Burn Talks thing. And it was so moving and so powerful for them and for the people who then saw it. So if you do get the chance, check them out. They actually used voice recorder on their phones. Yeah, and then there's a website that you can go to that will download the audio off of YouTube, but not the video. It's a little sketchy. I'm like really into copyright, so if you're gonna do like it couldn't be. I had to cut them down to like you have 30 seconds of audio, is actually what the law says. So it had to be shorter than 30 seconds, and they had to cite it to make sure they were using it. Also, under the educational umbrella, we get a little more wiggle room to be able to use it. Can't be monetized, those kinds of things. But then to add it, and they actually put they used GarageBand because we had iPads to put it together. But there's a bunch of free websites that you can do. There's an audio joiner that's silly easy to use. You literally just drop the files in. Did you? Yep. Yes. Yeah, the NPR podcasting website was like, go here, use this. Are you? Yeah, I'm sure they're up in their game.
They have a bunch of stuff, and they want teachers to tell them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, they definitely asked me for some feedback on like what happened and how we did it and stuff. And they've shifted because the people who want this stuff out there are asking the people who are asking the kids to do it. So they want our feedback. And they took my students' feedback too. They were like, can we write to them? I'm like, yeah, here's the address. Whatever, I think it was podcast at npr.com. Yep. So, yeah, npr.org. Well, thank you. The credit for the work goes to the kids. I just kind of gave them the freedom to not write a research paper. And then we sort of played with it. Please feel free to click on any of it, use any of it. It's stuff I made up, like I put together from what I kind of picked out from pieces sort of across the gamut. So thank you all very much for this was a late session. I really appreciate you coming. So
You're a very, very good teacher. A very good teacher. Your passion
thank you.
is what makes this work, and that's
Thank you.
Really energized me.
Oh, thank you. This late in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Who's going to the Heinz Center?
Let's go.
It's time for a drink. No, thank you very much. Like I said, this was something that when I started to do with my kids and their parents, the parent, no pushback. The parent, like, you had my kid talking about at home. Another point for me. But that's what we want. We want them to want to tell us stuff. And we want them to do it in all those right ways that we sort of cover, but give them the outlets. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Absolutely. So, when I did it that this was multiple episodes that they had to sing a song.